All right, Joaquin Rosales Aramburu, welcome to the show. Joaquin Rosales Aramburu is an immigration attorney who is an in-house legal counsel here at Visa Franchise, and today we'll be talking about an E2 business plan.
My favorite.
My favorite also, but a lot of people get it wrong. So our job today is to try to dissect it surgically to see what to do, what not to do, and what role the business plan plays within the overall E2 visa petition. So without a further ado, how would you position the E2 visa business plan within the overall petition? What role would it serve?
I think the business plan is by far, besides the legal argumentation, the most important thing, right? Because it really outlines the substantial investment, right? The real operating, and right now I'm just throwing literally the wording of the regulations as to what do you need in order to be approved for this visa. So the business plan lays out all those different things. I'll tell you what, one major mistake that I always see is that we encounter a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are, have business backgrounds, and they say, oh, I have the greatest business plan and all these numbers and all these different projections and all that. And I tell them, slow down. You need to realize that you're sending this application not to a business major, not to an economist. You're sending it to someone who probably graduated with a philosophy major. And
Really?
just wants to, and is doing their consulate tour. They rotate them all the time, and it's just part of their sort of trajectory within, their journey in the government, right?
Yeah.
So they're not, very sort of, I don't want to say they're not smart, but they're not too knowledgeable about businesses overall, just as a human being, right? In their background, their studies. So the business plan has to be very tailored towards immigration, towards what they're looking for. What is it that they're looking for? Are you investing enough money for that particular business that you're proposing you want to bring? You want to bring in here, or you want to buy, or a franchise that you want to buy, right? Employees. Are you going to be able to employ people in here, right? The business can be marginal. That means that you can't just simply have a business where you can feed your family. It has to be stimulating the economy. You got to be employing people, right? So the focus of the business plan, the immigration business plan, not the big shot, financial analytics and projections, is how are we going to make this work? Is it feasible with the amount of money that we're proposing to invest, right? And how many people are we going to be employing, and the projection of the years that you're most likely going to get, which is usually around 5 years for most countries, right? So business plan, probably one of the most important things after the legal argumentation, but it's important to focus on the things that they're looking at, right? They want to look at the money, they want to look at employment, they want to look at tax revenue that might be coming in, that will be coming in because you're establishing a business here, or buying a business here, or a franchise. And those are the things that you want to focus on.
Hey, you want to come to the US, get to E2 visa, L1, or straight out a green card? We've been doing this for the past 10 years, and we wrote a book. It's called Own Your American Dream. What is special about this book is that we went back and have spoken to 21 successful applicants who opened up their businesses here and who are continuing to live the American dream. Hear it from them, because they talk about their fears, their mental state, what went wrong, what went right. The entire blueprint is there. You could just buy the book right here. You can just read it and make up your mind. Continue your video. Right. So you actually touched upon this, but I want us to spend a bit more time discussing this particular thing. What are some of the core elements of an E2 visa business plan?
So substantial investment, number one, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be logical, right? You can't tell me you're going to create this huge business, right, and only invest $50,000 on it.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense, right? On the other side of the coin, a lot of people say, oh, I'll just throw money at it. And you're telling me you just want to buy a cafe and you're going to throw $500,000, for something that most likely you can just do with $150,000. That's a little fishy to the agent. Why?
Right.
Because they don't want people also coming in here just because they want to come here and have a visa. They want people to come in here in order to create a business that they're going to be interested in, they're going to be involved in, right? And that means that they're going to grow it, which means that they're going to employ more people, they're going to pay more taxes, and they're going to grow the economy. That's the purpose of the visa. So a lot of people say, oh, I'll just throw more money into it. It has to make sense with the type of business that you're proposing. You can't just simply say, I want to do business A and I'll throw X amount of money. No, it has to really match, right? A with A, B with B. This business that I'm proposing makes sense to the officer. The amount of money that I'm investing in, it's actually a reasonable amount in order to open up this type of business or buy a franchise. With franchises, it's even easier for them because they can just simply look it up, right? How many locations will these franchise have, right? They have 30, 40, 50. So they see the amount of money, they see that you pay the franchise fee, and then it makes sense to them that this is going to be a feasible business, that it's probably going to be able to employ people, and increase tax revenues for the coffers of the United States.
I get the substantial part of it, but there are some other elements to a successful E2 visa business plan.
Yeah.
Well, off the top of my head, I can think about, the future projections, right? That's one particular element. And another one that I often see that is being, emphasized is the background of the applicant.
Yes.
So we have a bit of ambiguity here where, some people say, oh, but I don't have the background for this. I'm a teacher at home and now I'm opening up a convenience store in America. Would that be a problem? So that's one, right? No. And the other question is that, let's say, you touched upon the throwing money point. Sometimes people might have their own businesses that they're running outside the US and they just want to come in here and replicate the same business or branch out, but they may not necessarily have a lot of money, 30K, 40K, 50K, but they got all the track record. They've been doing all this stuff. So how does an applicant's profile help the E2 visa business plan to create, a narrative that would sort of like make you overlook the substantial investment of it?
Well, I mean, you can never really overlook the substantial investment, but it's certainly what
it's proportional. Huh? 50K could be substantial for...
Yeah, depending on what you want to... But what business you want to do and where you want to do it, absolutely. Right. But in general, a lot of people have this misconception that just because I was, an engineer, right, they're going to look at me and say, oh, I'm buying a franchise or I'm starting my own business in whatever industry it might be that has nothing to do with your industry, and then they're not going to be approved. Not at all. As a matter of fact, most of the people that we deal with don't have a background in the type of business that they're doing. What they're looking for, though, and that's an important and essential part of the process, right, in the regulations, whether or not the person has the capability to operate and direct the business, right? But, you're an educated person, right? I'm an educated person. He's an educated person. So long as you have a good background in terms of education, it doesn't mean that you need to have a master's degree, right? But you can prove that you've either have good education or you've had, pretty successful professional life. That means that you can probably handle a business that you're proposing to bring into the United States. So you don't have to have experience in that particular business. Does it help if you do and you've done that before in your country? Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. It certainly helps because it boosts the argument that, hey, this person has dealt with, bakeries in his country before and he wants to open up a bakery here. Well, he probably knows what the heck he's doing, right? But it doesn't mean that just because you're an attorney, right, you don't have the ability and the intelligence to be able to run a business, right? That has nothing to do with law, right? I mean, I can probably myself open up a bakery, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And then, run it pretty appropriately in order to make it successful and employ people. So that's a misconception, and you're absolutely right that it's important to let people know that it doesn't have to be within your own industry or what you've done. It's just about your track record. Or can you convince the agent that you have what it takes in order to run a business here and direct the business here? That's essentially it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is very important, and sometimes in some of the discovery solution calls, when we have with the prospects, we generally talk about this, almost like a hybrid approach between, E2 application and a talent application to almost like merge these together. Because sometimes what happens is that the applicant has a pretty solid background. Not only they're doing what they're doing, but they have been doing what they're doing for a very long time. They got certain achievements and recognitions. Their businesses won, some awards. The top line's great, and the person's profile is perfect. At that very point, even if to compensate, let's say, the substantial investment, because the business may or may not need it, in the US, to compensate certain points, would you leverage the background of the client, almost like turn into a hybrid E2 and a talent or the all one petition together and help that leverage it?
Yeah, as an attorney, you always want to look for the most convincing arguments that you can make for your client, right? So if your client has a very impressive background, right, it has been successful in X industry, even though it might not be the same industry, you really want to highlight that, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with numbers, right? So did X revenue or whatever it may be has ran, this type of corporations with this type of this many people in the company.
Right.
All these things are the things that you want to highlight. Why? Because it shows that the person can run a business. Yeah. So in the end, you want to highlight the achievements, right, and the talent that the person has in order to make a more convincing argument, and they'll be able to operate and direct the business here in the United States. So you're absolutely correct. It's like a hybrid of, hey, not only does he have the money or she has the money, right, and has a good idea, franchise, start your own business, whatever it may be, but at the same time, they're prepared. They're ready to go. They can do this, and they're confident that they'll be able to be successful.
The reason why I'm saying this is because some of our clients, maybe they're watching us now, and when we talk to them, the issue always comes, hey, Alain, I'm thinking about doing my own business there. I'm already doing it in my home country, but I don't have the need to invest $100K. My business simply doesn't require $100K to get going. I got 50 or 60 that's lined up for it, and that's a reasonable amount that is substantial for my business. But I'm really worried that the consulate officers may look at it as the investment being not substantial. So that's, I guess, what I was referring to, almost like then let's create the narrative in such a way so that it works.
Obviously, a lot of people have this sort of $100,000 is the key amount that you need to invest in. And there's nothing in the regulations state that it has to be $100,000. But to your point is that if you can make a really convincing argument that, yes, it might not be $100,000, it could be $60,000 or $70,000, but you have a person who's extremely well prepared, right? And have a huge track of achievements in their either business career or professional career, has a great idea, and they want to bring that idea in here and make it a reality, then you push on the fact that they've been very successful in the past and they can do it. It's just a matter of just having a little startup money as opposed to having a lot of startup money, and then it will eventually turn into a bigger thing. More employment, once again, more tax revenue, stimulating the economy, the things that they really are looking for.
So there's no algorithm that automatically qualifies or disqualifies petitions once the investment is under 100K.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a very, personable moment where you're really trying to convince the other person that, hey, this is indeed going to work and it's going to benefit the United States of America. But here at Franchise, we get to write what now? 15 business plans a month? And you, as our in-house counsel, you read those.
I do.
And that's almost like your pastime, your hobby. You look back at E2 Visa business plans. Now, the question is, out of all the business plans that you get to read, what would you say are some of the major mistakes that people are doing? What would you say are the biggest no-nos?
First off, the ones that I read for VF are really good because we have a pretty good team that does.
I know we prepare
that does
those.
that, but in general,
we know how to do it. Yeah.
In my experience, my past experience for people who have gone with external person or they wanted to do it on their own, you'll be surprised how sometimes they're just very they don't listen to you and they say no, I can do it on my own. I was like, okay, fine, you want to do it on your own, you go ahead and do it on your own. But I think the fact they're focusing too much on trying to make an impressive and unrealistic argument in terms of like the earnings and how much they're going to make. Like they're, once again, yes, I just mentioned previously that you're probably dealing with a person who's graduated from, I don't know, philosophy or mathematics or whatever it may be, right? They don't have that background, but at the same time, they're not idiots, right? So if you're going to be projecting that you're going to make $200,000 for that particular business within the first year and $500,000 in the second year and $1 million in the third year, like that probably doesn't make sense depending on what it is that you're proposing, right? So you have to be reasonable. You have to be logical. It has to make sense, right? And obviously they have tools, at their hands where they can just go on the internet just like we do, right? And try to figure it out. Okay, what does a bakery usually make, right? In this location, in this area. I mean, there's tools that obviously they have available to make sure that they have the opportunity to look up information that will help them make a determination in the cases. So if you want to be like superfluous and really, be braggy about how much money you're going to be making, you're probably going to be shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, sometimes you see those. I saw one car rental business. So look at the overall car rental market in America, and then say, even if we get 0.01%, it would be this amount of money. But you won't. Guess what? You won't.
Exactly.
So,
location and region. You know what I mean? You can't say that it's going to cost you a certain amount, or you're going to need only this amount of money in New York City in comparison to, say, I don't know, Texas, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will say, oh, it doesn't matter. I can invest the same amount of money. It doesn't matter what state of the United States I'm in. That's just not realistic, right? Everybody knows that New York City is extremely expensive.
Of course.
Los Angeles is extremely expensive, right? So as opposed to, in comparison, I don't know, Texas and Houston or something like that.
Yeah.
So things like that are sort of like the no-nos and sort of the mistakes that we see all the time. And also, projections in terms of employment, right? You have to be realistic. You have to be logical about what you're doing, right? We tell them sometimes, not sometimes. We tell them like it's important that you highlight the fact that you're going to be employing people, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, I'm going to start with 2 people, and then by year 2 I'm going to have 25. That doesn't make sense. Like, it just does not make sense. You know what I mean? So you see these mistakes. Obviously, you try to advise them as an attorney. You tell them this is not something that I would go for. They get mad at you. Some of them push back and they say, I want you to submit it that way. Okay, well, that's it's your case.
Have you seen applications denied just because of the poor planning?
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're being questioned about the business plan, and they ask them specifically, how can you actually tell me that this is going to happen? These numbers are going to happen. Explain that to me. How do you see that happening? And then they just get caught, like a deer in their lights, pretty much, and they don't know what to say. So you have to actually really be prepared to have knowledge of your business, right, and how your business can expand based on the investment that you've made. So that's something that is really important to prepare yourself for the interview. Know really well your business inside of out, and the capability of your business in terms of expansion and employment.
Let me ask you this question. So, some people get a business plan template online and try to do it themselves, or use ChatGPT or whatever else they have, or maybe find somebody on Upwork or something to just put something together. Number one, how dangerous is that? Number two, what would the most optimum, well-prepared E2 visa business plan look like? How many pages is it? How many sections does it have? And how many minutes it should take the visa officer to read and come to a conclusion that, okay, this makes sense?
Number one, for people who are trying to use, ChatGPT and all that, I really wouldn't recommend it. You got to be able to have a very convincing argument that this is going to work out. And obviously, they can check themselves. You know what I mean? There's even some platforms out there that can see whether or not you use ChatGPT and that type of stuff. Which, look, in the end, if it makes sense, it makes sense. But you wanna understand that the craft really is on the fact that we've had experience with different consulates and across the world. And each consulate has a different sort of set of rules and requirements as to how you need to submit petitions for E2, right? Including the business plan, right? So in terms of length, right, I wouldn't tell you exactly a particular amount. So for example, in Toronto, you have a 50-page limit. 50-page limit overall of the application, right? In Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, you have a 100-page limit, right? So it really depends on the consulate. So once again, go back to the craft of people who do this, us professionals who are in this world, is because we know the consulates. We know what they like. We know what they don't like, right? Argentina is very huge in source of funds. That's another part of the E2 process, where they want to know, where does the money come from, right? So in Argentina, they're notorious in Buenos Aires to really question all the way back, even much more than other consulates, where did each penny come from, right? So if you're acquainted with that consulate, you know that you need to really focus on that. ChatGPT doesn't know that about the consulate in Buenos Aires. And ChatGPT doesn't know what the consulate in Toronto likes. And ChatGPT doesn't know what the consulate in Juarez or in Madrid likes, right? So you have to, rely on people who know what they're doing because they've been doing it for a long time, and they recognize which consulate likes what and which consulate doesn't like what.
What do you like? Build me your dream E2 visa business plan.
Let's just assume for a second that we're in a perfect world where there's no limitations or anything like that. I like a little bit more concise, right, and to the point. These people are also dealing with a lot of applications depending on the consulate, right? So depending on the consulate, once again, knowledge that not everybody has, nor ChatGPT, right? Depending on the consulate, that particular unit might be very overwhelmed, which means that they have aides, right, that basically flag things or give them sort of like a summary. And then sometimes they might only have 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go through your paperwork, right? So if you're gonna have 20, 30 minutes to review paperwork, what do you wanna do? You wanna have a concise, but something that really jumps out to the officer in terms of the business plan and catches the attention of the officer from the get-go. In the beginning, boom, this is how much we're gonna be spending. Boom, this is how much people we think we're going to be employing. And these are the projections. You catch them in the beginning with that. And then in the middle, you might want to talk about the market, right? And where you could expand to and all that, right? And then you have a conclusion where you basically just summarize everything that you did in the beginning and throughout the business plan. So I think that will be my ideal business plan, assuming that there's no restrictions on any consulate.
All right, cool. For just concluding, for some of our audience who are watching us or listening right now, what would be your number one advice?
Get help. Don't try to do it by yourself. I mean, there's people out here. I mean, I don't try to fix my own teeth.
Sure.
I go to the dentist. So get help from professionals who have been doing this for years and know exactly what to do. They know the consulates.
Yeah.
They know, how officers, work in each consulate. So go get the help and the advice of these professionals so we can help you get what you want.
Sure. Guys, we don't actually plan or provide a standalone E2 visa business plans. We don't have such a service, but we do it for clients who engage our services. That's within our package. So if you are interested in applying for the E2 visa, just know that Visa Franchise provides A to Z services, which includes writing the business plan in accordance with the liking of the consular officers. So if you've watched the video so far and if you've enjoyed the content, please don't forget to give the video a like and just subscribe to the channel so that you can see content like this. Joaquin Rosales, thank you.
Aladdin, you're welcome. Thank you.